Let's talk about the Mage Order Hall. So I
Ooh.
want you guys to be aware that I do have some video footage while Lycan is talking about the lore. So we are going to talk about the Mage Order Hall. Now, the Mage Class Hall is the Hall of the Guardian, and it's in a sanctum in Delran. Mages, well, obviously because they're mages, they'll have the teleportability. It's something that they will acquire to be able to teleport to. It would be kind of disappointing if they didn't. And once again, same deal. Lots of notable NPCs inside this order hall. So I'm going to go ahead and let Lycan get right in with some of his lore while we go through the beautiful Mage Hall.
Ice, ice, baby.
I actually go ahead and put this in the form of a rap, so if you give me a moment, I'll go ahead and start laying down the beats. No. Actually, if you guys remember who the Guardians of Tearsfall, we've been talking about them for months, and I keep going into this. That is why they call it the Hall of the Guardian. The Guardians were all mages. Now, the mages are actually the masters of the arcane. They're able to either burn you alive or turn you into ice cubes. The only thing mages are good for, though, are portals and mage tables. That's it. No, I'm joking. All kidding aside, this class is known as a glass cannon. They have some suitable spells for survivability, but are really better known to freeze and destroy or melt your face before you know what hit you. Mostly, people think of mages, when people think of mages in their origin, I should warn you, it actually should be the Kaldorei, not the humans. It was the Kaldorei, or what were called the Children of the Stars. These were the night elves that were under the direction of Queen Ashara. They had the biggest influence on what actual Azeroth looks like right now than any other race or class. Under the false promises of Sargeras to provide power overwhelming, these night elves actually attempted to bring him through the portal and use the Well of Eternity to do so. Now, we just learned some information about the Well of Eternity through the Chronicles book that was just recently released. The Well of Eternity was actually created when Aman'Thul, now if you guys remember who the Titans are, the Aman'Thul was the head of the Pantheon. He ripped Y'Shaarj, this is the old god that we saw in Mist of Pandaria, and grabbed him. He was so pissed off at what they were doing, he ripped him right out of the crust, leaving behind a huge gaping wound left in Azeroth. There are some spoilers about that one that I'm really not going to get into because I think they're going to go into it more when Legion comes up. But we're going to learn about what the wound was for. The Keepers called this wound, though, the Well of Eternity, and it was actually a lake of arcane energies that was used by the Kaldorei for powering their magics. After the failed attempt, though, to pull Sargeras through the portal, the world was basically torn asunder. Leaving the continents and the islands is what we see today. The gaping hole left became what is now the Maelstrom. The High Elves, though, or those are closely associated with Queen Ashara, were actually turned into the Naga. The waters of the well were forbidden to be touched by any mortals due to the powder it held, but that didn't stop Illidan during the War of the Ancients. He had actually taken 7 vials from the well. 3 were poured into the lake at Mount Hyjal to create the new well. This created what is now known as the World Tree, Nordrassil. And we see that if you go to the Mount Hyjal, that's your starting point. If you look up at that huge freaking tree right in the middle of everything. The Kaldorei, under the leadership of Dathramar, Sunstrider, which he acquired one of those vials and used it to create the Sunwell. There were 2 more vials that found their way back to Illidan. One he gave to Lady Vash, and the other one was to Kel'Thas Sunstrider. And if you remember, there was a quest if you went into and it's still there, you could actually go into the Caverns of Time, and you can get a quest to go retrieve those vials. They are now in the possession of Nozdumu's consort, Sori Dormi. It is unknown where this last vial is, however. Some point to the Well of Eternity instance where Illidan used it. Some say that he used it and refilled the vial, and then used it to create the Shrine of the Souls in the Black Temple, and that's that 3-headed boss that you feature in there as well. Nobody's really sure. I've heard some rumors about it maybe coming up in Legion, but we haven't had that 100% to confirm that yet or not. Then we go into the Blue Dragonflight. Now, they're under the direction of Kalecgos. They've always tried to keep the mortal races from abusing the arcane and keeping their power in check. Malagos, which was the original aspect of the Blue Dragonflight, was granted something called the, I'm going to try to say this, Arcanomicon, or something like that. I think that's how you say it. Arcanomicon? That's it. This was given to him. Basically what it was is the map of the ley lines in Azeroth. These were lines of great power. Malagos was willing to kill all mortals, or anything that he considered what was a lesser being in his eyes, just to keep them from wielding the arcane and divert all the ley lines to the Nexus in Northrend, which is where you meet Malagos and the rest of the Blue Dragonflight. But since Kalecgos has taken over after the destruction of Theramore, the Blue Dragonflight has all but disbanded, leaving Kalecgos to run the Blue Dragonflight and join actually up with Jaina in the Current Tour. So, who is the Current Tour? They are the defenders of what is that? They are the defenders of magic. They are the studiers of it. They defend Dalaran and the ruling body of the mages. It was formed by the humans after the Kel'Darai taught the human the ways of the magic when the trolls actually were attacking them from Zul'Aman, in exchange for military aid from the kingdom of Erethdor. Now, this Erethdor should sound a little bit familiar. That's in Arathi Basin. That's just south of there. There's that big storm grower down there that you'll see. The mages founded a city, named it Dalaran, and continued to hone their magical skills. Once they were a part of the Alliance. They were one of the original 7 kingdoms of the Alliance. Now they are a neutral city, having ties with both Stormwind and actual Silvermoon as well. Dalaran still remains, though, the magical city and the seat of the Current Tour. They're ruled by something called the Council of Six, which up until Legion was led by Jaina Proudmoore. She, however, which I know Huge Book will be very happy, left the council for unknown reasons. Nobody knows what's going on. Now the council is actually headed up by Khadgar, and the other ones that are involved are Kalik or Kalecgos, Karlane, Modera, Answer Runeweaver, and Vargoth. Some of the most powerful mages that are still here in Azeroth. Now, we've seen the city of Dalaran move from place to place. Its original home was in Lordomere Lake, near Lordaeron, not Undercity, I refuse to call it that, to the city, to the Crystal Song Forest in Northrend. We again see it move from the Legion to the Broken Isles now. Now, this city was at one point razed by Archimonde and completely destroyed, and it was rebuilt by the mages of Dalaran. Still holds some secrets, though, including what has been protecting the city. And we'll actually discover that in Legion, and that's not giving any spoiler away. That was actually plain outly announced that we're going to actually see what was hidden underneath and what protects it this entire time. It will also be the home of the class hall, of course, of the mages. Now, the mages are actually going to get 3 artifact weapons in Legion. Arcane mages are going to get Aluneth, the Great Staff of the Magna. It was actually wielded by Aegwynn. She was the only female guardian of Tirisfal, and she had this staff hidden because of the power that it held. What's really neat about this one is when mages hit something called 4 stacks of arcane charges, you'll actually get a power called the Power of Aegwynn, granting 50% increased arcane damage. Mind you, all this stuff is still in beta, so please do not quote me on this a month from now if anything's changed. Fire mages will get Fellow Malorn, or what is called Flame Strike in the common tongue. Fellow Malorn is actually Kel'Darai. It was once wielded by Dathmar Sunstrider, which is who we spoke about before, who created the Sunwell. It has been passed down through the generations by the Sunstrider dynasty, including Kael'thas. And with this storied blade, though, you'll sometimes gain something called flame orbs, and it causes your pyroblast to be replaced by something called Phoenix Flame. And you can think of this as like a rain of fire for mages. It'll be neat to see them use that instead of Blizzard. So Fire Mage is getting some really neat spells, and Fellow Malorn is a hell of a weapon. Finally, it comes down to Even Chill for the Frost Mages. This was actually held by Elodie, which was the first guardian of Tirisfal. The Current Tour has had possession of this since Elodie passed away years ago. This staff replaces spells for the Frost Mages called your spell Frostbolt, and actually changes it with something called the Even Bolt. which you can think about Frostbolt on crack. I mean, it's just one hell of a spell. As for everything going on with the lore, it'll be neat to actually see maybe interact with some of these characters. We know Ageman's dead. We know Elodie's dead, of course. We know Dathramar Sunstrider is also dead. But it will be neat to actually see some of these storied blades being brought into the games and given to the heroes in the games. These three people alone are some of the biggest names in lore. Dathramar, Ageman, and Elodie, and their weapons have changed the course of history in Azeroth several times. The only thing I gotta say is, are you gonna be one of the ones that are be choosing that weapon and change it once more? Will your name be listed right alongside with them? And it'll be neat to see. And we shall see if you're able to live up to these three names in the lore itself.